Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Peter Murphy begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Tomorrow will be a different Tasmania. That's the message from the Premier as we enter the next phase of the coronavirus outbreak. Our state has experienced its first death linked to the virus, an 80-year-old woman in the northwest. In the coming hours, tough new measures will be introduced in Tasmania, banning people from leaving their homes unless they have a good reason. Now, for more on those restrictions, our reporter Ebony Ablett joins us now. Good evening, Ebony. The order comes into force at midnight.
Yes, Pete, the order will come into effect overnight and last for at least the next 4 weeks. It means people will have to remain in their primary place of residence unless they have a specific reason. We've just received the official orders, including a long list of exceptions. That includes leaving your home for work, school or volunteering, attending a medical appointment, shopping for essential supplies, providing compassionate care to another person, shared custody arrangements, going to the vet or exercising. Authorities are also saying don't travel to shacks unless you relocate there until the situation is resolved. Now, it's not a complete lockdown, but the government has warned if people don't have a good reason for leaving their home, they're committing an offence and risk receiving a fine or even jail time.
This means that unless you are going to work or school, getting essential or medical supplies, exercising or providing compassionate care, you will need to remain in your primary place of residence. And you will be committing an offence if you don't.
Now, this is in addition to the measures announced by the Prime Minister last night. Indoor and outdoor gatherings are limited to 2 people unless they live together, they're a family, or there's a wedding or a funeral.
Yes, thanks, Ebony. And also a sad development with our first coronavirus-related death as well today.
Pete, that's right. Public Health has confirmed a woman in her 80s died in the Northwest Regional Hospital in Burnie this morning. Obviously, for privacy reasons, authorities haven't released extensive details and we're not sure if it is linked to the cruise ship cases. But the Premier has cautioned it's unlikely to be the last death we experience during the outbreak. A sad development out of the Northwest Regional Hospital this morning. Authorities confirming a woman in her 80s died here, Tasmania's first linked to the outbreak.
I can confirm that a woman in her 80s this morning passed away in the Northwest Regional Hospital. This woman was being treated for COVID-19. I want to extend my heartfelt condolences and deepest sympathies to her friends and loved ones.
The woman has been confirmed as a previously reported case, but exact details of how she contracted the condition haven't been released.
I'm not going to provide further detail on it at the moment. That the case has been notified to the coroner, and I would rather make sure that any public statements we make about it are made after the coroner's had an opportunity to consider that notification.
Last night, a further 4 cases of coronavirus were confirmed, bringing the state's current total number to 66.
3 of these cases were associated with the cruise ship Ovation of the Seas and 1 with Voyager of the Seas. All cases were already in quarantine.
Public Health is continuing to investigate 2 cases in the Devonport area over the weekend, including a worker at the Mersey Community Hospital. Both people hadn't travelled interstate or overseas recently.
The 2 cases that were diagnosed on Saturday in Devonport are a particular concern to us in Public Health Services, and a particular concern because they may represent examples of community transmission in Tasmania.
We are aggressively tracing and tracking what's occurring in Devonport at the moment. We will look at what other steps we might take once we have a clear picture there.
Authorities say they're ramping up testing capabilities in the Devonport area for patients presenting with fever or respiratory symptoms.
This is in line with national recommendations to enhance population screening when there's concern about the possibility of a case that may represent local transmission.
Public Health says several people confirmed with coronavirus are moderately unwell in hospital, but they're not in intensive care. But the Premier has warned today's sad news is unlikely to be the last.
Extraordinarily saddened. And as Dr. Veitch has said, unfortunately, this won't be the last death. But I want to say to Tasmanians, and I want to be really clear about this, we have an opportunity to fight this.
Ebony Ablett, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania's tough new quarantine measures came into force today, with non-essential travellers entering mandatory isolation. The first flight under the new regime arriving in Hobart this morning. Passengers bus to hotel rooms where they'll stay for the next 2 weeks.
Touching down at Hobart Airport, Jetstar Flight 707 from Melbourne was anything but routine. Passengers disembarking under heavy watch, with all non-essential travellers kept on the tarmac instead of entering the terminal. A short time later, 2 buses were escorted onto the apron to transport the new arrivals, leaving the airport via a side gate and a police escort. All on board were heading for mandatory isolation. The Travelodge Hotel at the airport the first stop. Police and passengers taking no chance with their health, keeping their distance and wearing appropriate protection. Long queues forming outside, with guests only able to enter 1 person or travelling group at a time, under strict social distancing regulations. The hotel their home for the next 14 days, as the government grapples with the spread of coronavirus.
Our borders are the most secure in the country, and we make no apology for that. And we will utilise the space that we need based on the numbers of people coming forward.
Several other accommodation providers in Hobart, Launceston and the Northwest will be used for the new measures. The Premier confident there's enough space to handle the task.
In terms of the hotels that are actually being used for the self-quarantine, there are a number on the list and we will select from them as we need them.
Police are continuing to enforce self-isolation for those who arrived before the new restrictions. Today confirming of 1,300 checks, 40 people are being investigated for possible breaches.
We are there to make sure they understand the compliance. So the non-compliance thus far have been very minor in nature.
And as the state urges visitors to leave, there's only a limited number of flight services to take them home. Checking in at empty airports as tourism is shut down.
Everything here, the atmosphere is so strange. It feels like the airport's dead or something.
Third attempt to leave Hobart and unfortunately we've been travelling around for 12 days and most things were called off.
Shared spaces thoroughly cleaned throughout the day, as those leaving practice their own social distancing.
We've just lined up and put our bags in and we've just made sure that we're away from other people.
John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
4 men and a woman are tonight behind bars charged with the alleged murder of a 23-year-old Burnie father. Loved ones grappling with the loss have paid tribute online while starting a GoFundMe page to help pay for his funeral.
The accused murderers all appeared briefly in the Burnie Magistrates Court today, but in an unusual twist, due to coronavirus limitations, all media were barred from the courtroom. Ranging between the ages of 21 and 52, police claim the group used weapons to assault the 23-year-old victim in the early hours of Sunday morning. He was rushed to the Northwest Regional Hospital in a serious condition. 10 hours later, the young father died from his injuries. The crime scene at Ritchie Avenue in Burnie yesterday swarming with forensic police combing the area for clues, but today it was all cleared. A GoFundMe page has been set up by the victim's loved ones to help pay for funeral costs and to financially support his young family. Late this afternoon, the page had already raised around $2,000, with organisers saying he will be forever missed by all who loved and knew him. All 5 defendants were remanded in custody to appear in court at a later date.
A woman is fighting for life after being hit by a car in Launceston. The 32-year-old sustained serious head injuries in the collision. Police are still investigating exactly how it happened.
Paramedics, police and the public rushed to the 32-year-old woman's aid after a frightening mid-morning collision. At around 9 a.m, the woman was crossing High Street in East Launceston when she was struck by a station wagon, the impact causing significant head injuries. She was initially taken to the Launceston General Hospital before being airlifted to Hobart.
The circumstances of how she came to be on the road and what was actually happening are still being investigated.
The driver of the Subaru Forester, a 72-year-old local man, stopped to provide assistance following the crash. He was not physically injured.
He didn't appear to be affected by alcohol, drugs, speed. Don't believe it was in intention, so the circumstances are a bit unclear at the moment.
Police closed off the busy street for an hour and a half while investigations took place. They were seen talking to many of the residents who had heard the impact of the crash.
We are asking that if anybody was in the area at the time and saw the crash or may have seen the vehicle beforehand, if they could contact Constable Nigel Hausergo at Crash Investigation Services at Launceston Police Station, that would be appreciated.
Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
After the Aurora Australis went into retirement last week, the Antarctic Division has announced its temporary replacement. The Everest will be used to resupply Antarctic stations and Macquarie Island over the summer season. It will be on loan from Dutch company Maritime Construction Services for a minimum of 90 days. The Aurora's permanent replacement, the Noyina, is due to arrive in Hobart at the end of the year. A man who rescued a woman from her car moments before it burst into flames is being commended for his bravery. Daniel Coutinho had recently returned from serving in Iraq when he came across the badly injured driver who had crashed her car in Turner's Marsh in 2006. He says it was fate to be in the right place at the right time.
I guess I've been trained somewhat. I'd just come back from Iraq at that point in time, so I'd been in similar sort of urgent situations, but I knew I had to act and I had to act fast and just went into auto mode.
Mr Coutinho and the woman have remained friends following his heroic response. He'll formally receive his Australian Bravery Award later this year. The United Workers Union is calling for the government to bring its security guard and cleaning contractors in-house. It says the contractors working in government buildings should have the same entitlements awarded to full government employees during this crisis.
They don't have the same access to leave that other state service employees that they are working side by side with have access to through this pandemic.
They're also calling on the government to ensure all contracted workers have appropriate PPE while on duty.
Good evening. Some showers for the northwest and south today, but otherwise fine. 20 degrees in Hobart and Launceston. Burnie 18, while Devonport reached a top of 19 degrees. Flinders Island 20 degrees today. Smithton, Lowhead, Friendly Beaches and Ooze all 19. 18 on King Island, Strawn and Grove 17. 12 at Lyweenie today. To the satellite, and a frontal cloud band crossed the state today. The cloud band joining a low well in the south. Cloud associated with an upper level system extends from Central Australia to New South Wales. Tomorrow, a weak high will form northeast of Tasmania. A front approaches the southwest and weekends. A low pressure trough will linger about the north and central parts of the mainland. Coastal waters and southwest to northwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots, reaching 25 knots about the southwest. Swells to 1 metre in the north, 2 to 3 metres in the east. No warnings for tomorrow, so onto the forecast. Hobart and Adventure Bay both fine and 20. A cloudy day for Tarraleah 17. Launceston partly cloudy and 20. Devonport and Bridport both 19 tomorrow. A light shower on the way for Burnie 19. Showers forecast for Strawn 19 there also. And Marrawar looking at a top of 18. A mostly sunny day for St Helens 20. Swansea 21. Whitemark fine and 19 degrees. The UV a moderate 5 across the state. Turning now to Wednesday's forecast, and light showers for the northwest and far south, mainly fine elsewhere. Thursday, showers about the northeast, increasing to rain and extending to the east and southeast in the morning, and afternoon showers forecast for remaining parts. And finally, Friday, showers clearing from the southwest during the morning, then increasing about the northwest in the evening. Melbourne tomorrow looking at a fine day, a top of 22 degrees. Adelaide and Sydney both 23. Early fog on the way for Canberra 25. Brisbane a shower and 30. Perth 27 and Darwin a sunny day 34. And it's 16 right now in Hobart and Launceston with mostly cloudy conditions, and Devonport 16 and partly cloudy. Murph, that is where we'll leave Monday's weather.
Thanks very much, Laura. See you tomorrow night. That's all our news for now. The latest is next, and I'll be back with updates throughout the evening. Thanks for joining us. Good night.